Welcome to Dark Loops Productions Shogun Watch Party. I'm Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher at Illinois State University. And tonight we come together to discuss episode 3, Tomorrow is Tomorrow. Joining me in the Shogun Watch Party are my dear friends. Let's ask each of you to introduce yourselves and tell the world a little something about who you are and what you do. And we will start with Tatsu.
Hi, folks. Dr. Tatsu Shigeta here. I am a cognitive neuroscientist by training, turned tech industry sales manager. Um, and yeah, I don't have a witty one-liner, but I'm looking forward to
But you're digging
discussing
the show
today's
and you
show.
joined us to
Yeah,
talk about it.
that's
Absolutely.
right.
How about
That's
how
right.
about you, Kristen?
Hi, yeah, I'm Kristen Farrell. I'm soon to be Kristen Farrell Shigeta as of a week and a half. And I am an actor, singer, dancer turned fitness instructor and also realtor in the Chicagoland area.
Awesome. How about you, Rio?
I guess we have a bit of a family affair today. My name is Rio
I didn't even
Shigeta.
think about that. Oh,
Yeah. I am an entertainer, currently residing in Chicago, a salesman by day and a dungeon dweller by night, man of three hearts. And yeah, very much connected to everyone here today. And I think that's all I got at the moment. I have a lot to say about the episode.
well, there you go. So here's how we do it at Dark Loops Productions. Favorite line, favorite character, favorite scene. I'll open the floor to whoever wants to go first, and I'm sure we'll have a great discussion.
Okay. Um, I think my favorite scene, we discussed this earlier, Rio. I think when Bushige, is that his name? Is that his name? What's
Yabushige?
his
Yeah,
name?
we should
Or
get.
you're
Bushige
yeah.
is I have two favorite scenes, but I think my ultimate favorite one is the scene where he is on the dock
You're thinking of
and
Buntaro.
Bun
The
Buntaro.
husband.
Buntaro?
Right.
Okay, sorry.
Mariko's husband, yes.
I need to start writing people's
Mm.
names down because there's too many names. Just like in like why
Yep.
when we've talked
Yeah.
about Game of Thrones many times, there's too
Right.
many names. So I need to start writing names down. But anyway,
Yeah.
Buntaro, yes, Buntaro.
Yes. Hmm.
He he's on the dock and he has fought off the people that are on the dock with him.
Uh-huh.
And there's a moment where the Anjin says, "Well, we need to go back for him. We need to save him." And he's it's not allowed. Too
Hmm.
bad.
Well, and then Yabushige is like,
Yeah, he
mm,
says no, but he definitely is torn by it. But
well,
it is
and
a different. It's a moment of like for me as a Westerner to watch. Like, of course, like Blackthorn says we need to go back for him. No man left behind.
Mhm.
We can't leave him there on the dock. We can easily just get him, but it's not about him. It's about the greater good. And so there is this moment where so many reactions happen and no words are said.
Hmm.
And
hmm
there is the
hmm
reaction of Blackthorn realizing that, like, oh, this is not about the individual. And there's who's thinking, like, this is somebody I trust and I care about, but we cannot go back for him because we can all die if we do.
Mhm.
And
And then there
you're
is
thinking of
Mariko.
Toranaga, right?
Toranaga, did you just say Yabushige? And I said,
Yabushige's in that scene too, and he
Mhm.
does give
yes.
a
Yeah.
also
No, no,
we're
no.
not going back.
Okay.
But they switch to
It's Toranaga.
Toranaga,
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Right.
that's who you're I think
Yes, that's who I'm
mentioning right
thinking of.
now.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, and then we look at Mariko, who
Hmm.
has so many moments.
Hmm.
There are
Uh-huh.
so many emotions that float across this woman's face. This actor does such a phenomenal job of portraying fear, relief, guilt,
Mhm.
pain for her son, hope for her own future, and also I think the maybe even the denial of it all. Just watching him make this decision that he knows that he needs to stay. And we discussed this also, Rio, that I actually thought he was going to fall on his sword in that moment. I
Mm,
didn't realize that
That he
that
would,
it would be
yeah.
more honorable to fight than to. I thought it would have been more honorable to die by your own hand than to be killed.
mm,
But we discussed how that would not be the case here. It would not be more honorable. But as someone who doesn't know much about the samurai culture, I
mm,
assumed that dying by your own hand, your own choice would be more honorable than being killed. But I guess it is
mm.
more honorable to be fighting until the death, until the
Right,
end. But yes,
right.
I felt like this scene was just filled with so much emotion, so much story, and power all in probably a 90-second clip. And also right before it starts,
Mm,
you see an overhead view, a bird's eye view of people, the people coming into the city with
mm.
the torches, and you hear a swarm of hornets or a swarm of wasps. If you listen, it's like zzz, yeah.
Mm.
And as someone who has been surrounded by hornets and wasps before, it's terrifying. But that's what's happening. And at least from the people that we're supposed to be behind, I just found that really an interesting sound choice or editing choice as well to add that sound in. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
I
that's
absolutely loved that was one of the many scenes in this episode and of course in the whole show, but where they're revealing the differences in culture through people's reactions to these types of events. And what I loved about it, it's like, damn, yes, go back and get him. And I will admit that's exactly how I felt. And that's exactly why it was written as it was, to make me feel that way, to then possibly give me a moment to check and say, what is it about what they're experiencing that's different from what I'm experiencing? And so it's not about being judgy. It's about what, why, how, right?
Mhm.
And I give the writers, the actors, the whole crew just props for being bold to make those differences that clear, right? And there, it's not saying your different word, there's not a script saying that. It's just living it. And man, that's
Mhm.
always the challenge with good writing is to let people live what you want them to do and show it and have the difference come out there. So
To, I mean,
another
the
amazing scene.
writers in this are great, but to me, that whole scene that was all the actors because there was very little said verbally,
Hmm.
but there was
Hmm.
so much said through their faces, their
Hmm.
eyes, their posture. It was it was a very powerful scene.
So, so, uh, for me, if I may, there are two things happening right now, I think, which is that experiencing it with Kristen, I feel like she has an understanding of like I don't know anything. I'm going to take in everything that's going to happen, and I have my expectations that are going to of the plot as what's going to happen, and it might surprise me. And then Scott, what you're saying of like, I have these expectations of the plot, and I like to be surprised and checked on what my expectations are of Western media and now I'm sort of starting to realize my perspective here, I think, which is that like I know what is supposed to happen in samurai culture in this scene. And and for me, I'm watching it as are they going to do what's correct or are they going to do Western media storytelling? And so for me, I didn't until you said it, Scott, feel like it was a checking moment of the viewers, of an American viewer watching this and saying, "Well, wait a second, why don't they save him?" because for me, I'm like, no, they're not going to save him because
Mm,
I know that samurai culture values glory in battle over the individual surviving, right?
mm,
That's already an assumption for me, so I have to take a step back, I think, here and think, oh, that isn't an assumption that I have, as opposed to a Western audience thinking the assumption is that you save the man, no man
mm,
left behind, like you said, Kristen. And
Mhm.
and so there was this conflict, right? The thing for me that was, I think, most interesting was that it involved Buntaro, the character that
mhm.
in the last two episodes, only two episodes that we've seen, is a despicable character. We do not
He's just,
like him. Yeah, he
yeah,
has
he's just
not
like
been.
a wimpy man, like is what he seems like
Oh,
No,
to
I'm gonna have
me.
to put. I'm gonna help out with Boone. Go ahead.
okay,
I
all
mean,
right.
he's doing his role too, and he's unhappy in his role. So,
I think I'll get there, but I also will welcome sort of your perspective on this at the end, which is that like he's been built up to be this despicable character. Maybe this is my Western side speaking and
mm,
saying that like he's this man, this overbearing husband. He is violent towards his wife and his son, and he's sort of a weak man with a megalomania complex of
mm,
I'm an important samurai that like should rule over my family and I have this authority. And as we know, at least in Western storytelling, that any man who does that is a weak man,
mm,
right? That has to like assert his authority.
Yeah.
And so we see that, but then the scene that we're talking about, what happens is that he shows up as a samurai. He shows up in his position, and this is something that I don't think we see very often in Western storytelling, which is that like he has a duty to fulfill, and
mm.
actually that is his life's mission, is to be the protector of his lord. And and in all
Well,
of those like complicated dealings that we see in those unspoken moments
mhm.
is him doing, he's he's having a hero moment right there.
Mm,
And if we're talking about a Western perspective, he is the hero. He,
mhm.
Yeah.
against all odds, will fight against the enemy to serve his purpose in life. Like, and
Well,
and so
that's
we're
yeah.
conflicted, right?
It's good storytelling because the thing is that humans are multifaceted. We
Mm,
contain multitudes, so we are not just the terrible husband or the bad father or, like we, just because we are failing in one side of our life doesn't mean that we aren't great at something else. And that doesn't make us a good person per
mm,
se. Like I'm not forgiving him being bad towards his wife, but you know, it is something that maybe, Mariko, maybe his son doesn't see that like this is who he is. This is his destiny. He's not a good husband. He's not a good dad.
mm.
He is weak in those areas. But this is where he shines, right
Uh,
here in
So,
this moment. And
yeah,
so
go ahead.
it is a moment that makes us uncomfortable.
For me, the dude's just living a life that's a little too complex for him to keep the Eightfold Path going. I mean, we don't know how he met his wife. We don't know what power Venn diagrams he's stuck in being married to her, right?
Hmm.
So if he's in a relationship and suddenly she's answerable to a man that he has nothing to say about, that man, that influences everything about him, right? So
Mhm.
he's living in a hyper complex Venn diagram. And I, that when they were on their way to the coast, he was also the leader. He's the one that said, "You guys go, we'll stay back here and do this." He knows who he is. And when it comes to this part of his life, particularly his wife and his son, he's not in control of it, particularly now that she's the right hand of, Toranaga. So
Toranaga,
I,
yeah.
yeah, so I think he's just as describable as, someone trying to live the Eightfold Path in a very, very complex world as anybody else, and he's just in a Venn diagram he finds very difficult to manage. That's not a justification. I'm just saying,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
I can see that his life is very, very difficult day to day because of the relationships he's in.
This is
And,
why
and
media is so interesting too, because if this were a real person and this is the way he treated his wife because his
cancel
job is hard,
immediately.
we hate him,
Cancel right
you know?
now.
Yeah.
But because we're seeing this through the lens of media, through the lens of entertainment, we
Hmm.
can we can be a little bit more empathetic
Hmm.
to this character that he is not a perfect person. He's
Well,
not great at being a family man, but he's good at his job. So we can be empathetic to those things because we are removed. It is
I
not our friend.
there was no one
I
in the
don't.
scene who judged him.
No.
There was no one in that scene that acted like he did anything wrong. So what I'm saying is what he's doing is acceptable in that world. We don't like it, but
We're judging it. Yeah.
he's the man of his household. And that's what's accepted in that culture. To the point there's stuff that happens later I'm not going to go into, but
Yeah.
because we're watching it one
We're
episode
not
at a
there
time, but it gets rough,
Mhm.
man.
Yeah,
I
well, I
mean,
mean, like you see it in the scene where they're leaving Osaka, and her son comes up to, or Mariko's son comes up to him, and
mm,
he's feeling sad, and he's like, "Well, you haven't like left the tea yet, or whatever,"
yeah.
Mhm.
um. So yeah, to me, he is kind of like trying to push this carbon copy of what you expect a samurai to be to his family, and eventually he'll win them over in some sort of way, right?
Mm,
Like, I don't
Mhm.
think it's just that he feels that he needs to be in control. It's like, but this is what society wants. Like, why can't you understand that? You
mm,
know?
mm-hmm,
I don't think he knows how to be in control. That's that in speaking to
mm,
what you're saying.
No.
Like
Which is why
he's just following
which
what
is
he thinks is
why
most.
which is why when he's on the dock and he's looking at her, like you get this like hint of sadness, like not in the way like I'm sad that you're leaving. It's like I'm sad that you don't accept me for who I am, type of thing.
Yeah.
well, we're going to come
Mm.
back to this character because we're
Ooh,
going to see
ooh.
more
Damn.
unfold about their
It's
Damn.
that.
backstory
I
over
mean,
the course
literally,
of these
this
episodes.
90-second scene is just
It's
so.
such a loaded
It's
scene.
such a loaded
Yeah.
scene.
Hmm.
There's so much that happens when nothing is said. It is
And
incredible.
Yeah.
and there's nothing we've seen, and I'm just giving the whole Venn diagram as I see it. We've not
Hmm.
seen Monaco be kind to him at all.
We
So
haven't seen him
there's
be kind to
something going
Marco
on in
either.
this relation. Well,
Well,
but that's my
yeah,
point. It's
good
not
point.
a
Yeah.
one-sided
Hmm.
thing. It's a Venn diagram in a very complex
No.
space. And I think we'll find out more about it as we go.
Okay, I was gonna
And
say I don't know
and
if we get the info, we don't
Kristen
get
and I,
more,
we
but
we did say this. We don't know how their
Hmm.
marriage was structured.
yep.
We don't know how that relationship was started to begin with. All we have context wise is what we've seen,
what we
how
see
they
now.
treat each other, how they treat their
Well,
child, and
well, we also know that Mariko comes from a disgraced family,
Yes.
right?
right. Yeah.
Who
Which
Yes.
marries
we
into
discussed her
this
name.
family,
And
right?
he
And
was forced
part
to
of
marry her.
the relationship dynamic, and yeah, Kristen, you and I discussed how her name Mariko is sort of
Yeah, I had
a
asked.
low-born name. Although it is an enduring name, it's almost the
Oh,
equivalent of like Kate, Catherine, or
yeah.
Elizabeth, and
Mm,
that like it
That's
is endured. Ta Tatsu, you and I have a sister named
Mm.
Mari.
mm,
yeah,
It is a name that endures.
mm,
But at the same
yeah.
time, like it is not a highborn name.
mm,
Mm,
And Mariko, the ko appendage to the name is actually kind of like Buntaro is not actually his real name. Like he
right.
has an official name and he has this sort of child name, and for that character, he's still called by his child name.
mm.
Mm,
You know, and I think that
Which says a lot.
Ironically, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it says a
ironically,
lot.
yeah. And I think that that's sort of the struggle that we're seeing is part of his like struggle for acceptance, validation in his role.
Yeah.
It's it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that that is such a tricky scene, and we'll probably come back to it,
No,
I
we will.
feel.
We'll come back to the
Even
character for sure.
like because there's a lot more to talk about, I think.
Yeah.
Um
Hmm.
here
Okay, we can move on to somebody else's favorite scene.
Well, I'll just go with my favorite phrase, and it's not philosophical at all.
Is it salty whale's tit? Because that's my
No, it's
favorite.
the couple
Salty
lines
whale's tit
before it.
is
No.
my favorite line.
My
Of
favorite
course it is.
line
Of
is
course.
when Blackthorn is actually trying to catch up to the black ship.
Hmm.
And
Ah,
Mariko gets this big smile on her face, and she says, "He's mad." That's the first time we've really seen her come through the Eightfold Path, right? It's the first time we've
Uh-huh.
seen honest, spontaneous expression totally
mm,
take over her face. And then
Uh-huh.
that happens three or four more times
yeah.
throughout the episode. And that may not be true because she also smiles at him when they're walking through the forest, I believe. So I think they have a conversation about his kid there. But
Uh-huh.
that
This is
he's
yeah, this
mad,
is a
that's a little
defining
bit,
episode.
this is a little bit more like the onset. I'm going to use the onset of a crush, just the onset of an attraction.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. Yeah,
and
based on the last
Hmm.
shot. Yeah.
I,
Yeah. So,
I thought
Mhm.
it was powerful.
uh-huh. There's many moments in this episode in particular where we see who these characters are, and we see the humanity coming out of Mariko, and then we also see the competence coming
Mm,
out of Blackthorn, which we know is supposed to be there because he's a a hero, white savior. But yeah, I said it. But
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
but I did,
but
and I'll
he's
stand
It
a,
by
has
it.
to be
But
it
I'll
has
stand
to be
by it.
said. It
It
has to
has to be
be
said.
said.
It has to
well,
be said.
yeah,
But
yeah, and that's the writing.
but you see also, yeah, I mean it's written by
Yeah.
a white man. So I mean that's that,
Hmm.
the original. But here's the thing.
And his Hawaiian
You
wife.
see that he actually has competence. So there's at least that. You see his competence starting to show, especially like in that scene where he says, "Do they fish at night here?" No.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get taken over. So
Well,
I
one thing
see them.
about Blackthorn is they made it clear in the past couple episodes that he's Protestant. And that completely matters. That completely matters
Hmm.
because even the Catholic Church is a much more collectivist culture than Protestantism, which is based on the idea that every individual has their own relationship with God that doesn't need to be mediated by a priest. And there were
Yeah,
hundreds of years of wars in England and Europe
Uh-huh.
right.
precisely
And
for that reason.
I don't think that that is something that is discussed a lot today, because the
Yeah.
the way religion is now, especially even Catholics are very uh, are a lot more open than they used to be, like thinking like, in the 60s they only
Well,
read
yeah,
mass in Latin,
right.
so like there's yeah, my mother grew up with Latin mass.
Mhm.
So I think that that's just something that like also this generation, my generation and younger, just doesn't know much about religion at all because religion has really gone down
Mm.
in this country, which I have my
Well,
own
the
my
thing
own
about
feelings about that,
Protestantism
but
is that it is the onset
but they
it's
don't
a
know the
phased
delineation.
transition in individualism, right? The
Hmm.
whole idea of an American Constitution came out of the Protestant religion in England and the
Sure.
idea that we're all going to have an individual relationship with God. And now that translates to the Constitution, to the Bill of Rights. We're the first legal system where the code is set up to spell out what the group can't do to the individual. That's why we have a thing called rights. So you see, he is the embodiment of that movement, 500 years ago. And all the things that he's portraying are things that are completely consistent with an individualist culture.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm going to save every life because every life matters, and from an individualist perspective. Uh,
Hmm.
and I thought his unabashed getting mad at them for letting things happen that he wouldn't let happen as a pilot or scout. I thought I thought that is again bold writing. Let the differences show. Just do it, and then we'll find out later. But we'll find out more things
So
about it.
Scott, based on that,
Mhm.
I want to sort of bring up a very interesting point in the episode, I think,
Yeah.
which is when Blackthorn, um, after they sort of start a conversation before they are sieged by the Christian Lord with the fire arrows,
Yeah.
about his children, and then they pick up later on
Yeah.
Mariko and Blackthorn about this conversation, and she's asking him about his children, and I
Mhm.
think this is, a very sort of like we assume this is going to be this
Mushy.
cute scene of them
Fluffy,
like
feathery moment.
bonding,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like
Yeah. A
relating to
Hallmark
each other,
moment.
and then we get a fucking fight, and then later on we do pick it up though, which
Yeah.
and in that he doesn't really necessarily talk about his kids. He's not about, oh, Tudor's this way, Elizabeth is this way.
Yeah.
First of all, he sort of like brushes it off as I've never met my daughter, and then
Yeah.
but then we get a little bit deeper into I haven't met my daughter. I've been on the
Yeah.
sea for this long, and
Mhm.
then yes, Kristen, we're getting to what you want to talk about. Um, we get to why he's drawn to the sea
Mm.
and why he is the way that he is, I guess. Why he set sail even though he has a wife who is pregnant
Yep.
and a child on the way. He set sail for the horizon. He set
The
sail for the
Grand
freedom.
Line. He's looking for
The
the
Grand
Grand
Line.
Line. He's
The
trying to get
Steve
to the
Bonnet.
Grand Line. I literally yelled that out as we were watching it. I was like, "Oh my God, he's going to the Grand Line. He wants the Grand Line."
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is,
So
and you know what's funny is that I mean, I'm a Westerner and I grew up in the United States. I identify with that very much so.
Mm.
Like I am marrying Rio in a week and a half, but I did not think I would ever get married. I
Mm.
never wanted children. I always wanted to pursue a life of
Mm.
discovery and adventure and happiness. And yeah, like it was nothing that was the marriage, children,
Mm.
not significant, not important at all.
Mm.
If you met me at 18 years old, I would say I want to be on Broadway and I don't care about relationships. Like I never want to get married. So like
Rio, it
I
sounds like you're a
identify.
force of nature, man.
He is, he is. But so like I identify with that, like he
Yeah.
saw the horizon and he wanted to go for it. And I
Yeah.
get that. I understand that. I can
Yeah.
empathize with that, which I don't find him a very empathetic character, but I
Right.
empathize with that.
No, I get it.
but I guess back to Shogun.
Yes.
Um, Note how that is so introspective, right?
Mhm.
Ironically, I think like viewing everything that is around you, seeing nothing but ocean and freedom, while I guess those are the opposing forces of like absolute singular freedom of the
Mm.
individual, where you see everything around you and it all belongs to you. This is everything that you
Mm.
can see is free for the taking, right? And then the opposing culture that we are in, right, in the show, which is the Japanese culture of you are within a system. You are within a society, you have your place, and the greatest glory that you can serve within your lifetime is to serve as the specific role that you are given,
Mhm.
and not even chosen but given.
Yeah.
This is a philosophy that I think we will continue to visit. And
Yep.
back to Buntaro, his greatest glory, his shining moment is to be the best thing that he was ascribed to be. Right. And
Yeah.
that's why Blackthorn is having such such a struggle, such a
Yeah.
problem with being in this culture is that he does not belong. There is no place in which no one
Yep.
has ascribed anything for his role because there is no such thing. And
Ever.
to add to that, to exacerbate that is the fact that he has to be the main character. And I'm not even talking about in the story, just
Mm.
culturally, just as a person. John Blackthorne is the main character, no matter where
In
he
his
is in the
life.
story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas even Toranaga is not the main character in his story. He serves his place in history.
So we say in episode 3.
Right.
Mm.
I mean, okay.
So
And
say
like
we all in episode 3.
we might break
Yeah.
this later on
Right.
because this well okay and this is my trump card that I don't want to use, but
Oh, no, go ahead. Go.
ultimately this is a story written by James Clavell,
Yep.
right? So that even Toranaga being the best representation that he can be of a Japanese shogun is not essentially what he should be, right?
Mm.
But we can expect from the show. I want to expect from this production the best representation of a Japanese shogun,
Mm.
even if that is the origin. That is my expectation. That
Hmm.
is what I want to expect from this show. Is that we can move beyond that. That even though it was written as a certain thing, that there
Yeah.
is a world in which a Netflix show can create. Sorry,
No, FX.
a Hulu show, an FX
FX.
show.
FX.
Let me try that
Well,
again.
you're probably watching it on Hulu. It's probably paid
It's
for
on
by
Hulu,
FX.
but
Yeah,
there's
They pay
FX.
rental fees to FX to air it
And
on
then
Hulu. Who
I'm
knows?
going to start again.
Go
A
ahead.
show in which an FX show can represent a shogun in the correct way. And
I
that's not
think
politically correct, that's historically correct.
I
And
think they're
we as an
doing what they
American
can to
audience
rewrite.
can receive that correctly, whatever that means.
I think they are. I mean, as you know, we've discussed. I don't know much about samurai history. I don't know much about this history at all in this time
Mm.
period in Japan. But I think that
I
they are
don't really
doing a very good job, a very good job with being as authentic as they can be,
Mhm,
which I applaud. I think
mhm.
that is something that is something to be proud of. That these people are actually taking the time and taking the energy to make
Mm.
sure that it is historically correct and accurate, as opposed to just being like me writing a story that I'm like, oh, well, I think samurais are cool, which is
Hmm.
what I kind of think James Cavill, is that his name? James,
Uh,
no, what?
Mm.
Oh,
Clavel.
well.
Well,
Was
Cavill would
it
be,
the 1990s that the
Mm.
original show, the first TV
no,
show was
I think it was like I think it was the year I was born. I think it was like 1982 or 1983, something like that. It was like,
okay. We've come a
yeah,
long way. We've come a long way
Mm.
since that production.
yeah.
So I that should be said, I guess.
I would say Blackthorn's individualism is a pretty honest expression of what a leader would be in a Western military organization.
Sure.
He cares for his men. He negotiates. He wasn't going to go train them in how to use, he wasn't going to go back and train people on military tactics because he didn't know them. But he recognized, hey, they don't know that I don't know them. I can cut a deal and I can get my guys back, right? So uh, for me, that it it feels authentic in that sense. And what what Blackthorn's not as good at, particularly as Toranaga, is Blackthorn was never trained in how to hide his third heart, right? He was never
Okay.
trained
Uh-huh.
how to hide his third heart and how to live that way. And because in an individualist culture, you don't live that way, right? And
Mhm.
so I love the depth with which we're revealing the costs of both cultures. What's it cost to be an individualist culture? What's it cost to be a collectivist culture? And reading my Full Metal Alchemist today, you want something, you have to give up something of equal value. And I see
Equivalent
both of
exchange.
these, as there's a possibility space, and one is weighted more towards individuality, and one is weighted more towards collectivism. And all of those come with costs and benefits.
I
If we're
mean,
going to look at
yeah,
the world of costs and benefits, and I think it's a brilliant, dramatic analysis of the differences. Yeah,
it is. It is. No society is perfect, you know?
yeah.
Like, just, yes, we should all care about each other, but sometimes all caring about each other
Well, I
is
love this because
bad for some people, you know?
yeah,
Like,
there
it's
you
bad for
Well,
some people.
so the negotiation that you're talking about, where he's having to sort of sacrifice his individualist nature for a greater good, we see that in the scene when Toranaga brings his papers, right? He's like, "Oh, so you're a pirate,
yeah,
at least according to these papers that I have right
yeah,
here. It's gonna take a little bit of time for me to translate these.
right,
So what you're gonna do in the meantime
yeah,
is train my troops in the ways of your military tactics."
yeah,
And then Blackthorn has a choice. Actually, he blurts out immediately, I don't have
yeah.
the tactics training. Oh wait. And then he
I'm
shuts up
also,
for a
I'm
second.
I'm not a pirate. Oh, wait. Oh,
He shuts up for a second and then he uses his brain.
Mhm.
He's in the context now. He is now
Oh,
in that collectivist culture of,
Mm,
oh, wait a second, what do I need to do to survive here right
mm,
now, as
mhm.
right.
opposed
Because
to live my truth, right? And
Yeah.
because what is his goal? What is his goal? To leave Japan alive.
he's got to get out of
And
here,
how
right?
does he do that?
And that's
How does he do
another
that?
thing.
He
And so
plays
he
ball.
thinks, right? And he thinks for a second. He said, "It would be a great honor to
So
serve you, Toranaga."
the thing
Right?
about individualism doesn't mean that you only care about yourself. It means that
Sure.
your
No, of course not.
sphere of concern is smaller, right?
Hmm.
Sure.
So you don't have a way of life. Uh, Particularly, he doesn't have the way of life that would you would find in a collectivist, holist culture. Um, Concern is still there. It's just the boundaries are much smaller. So I
And
mean, and I would say that Toranaga is not being in any way altruistic with Blackthorn. He's
no,
completely
No,
using the
he's
guy
no.
very
for every
calculated,
single
He's
thing
very
he
playing a game.
calculated.
can use him for. That's
Yeah.
just, he's getting his out of Blackthorn. And he knows he's got much more to gain out of keeping Blackthorn alive than finding him a pirate. So he's, whatever, bending rules, whatever you want to call it. He's playing the system and keeping him
Mhm.
alive. And I think those are great insights on Toranaga. I think those are the guys got his third heart. No one sees it, and no one sees what he sees.
I
Well,
mean,
And
if we want to talk about
all's fair in love and war.
Toranaga, right?
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
playing so many sides right now.
Mm,
The whole beginning of the episode is him escaping Osaka,
yes,
right?
Mhm.
Through a ruse,
of course,
Such a
you
good
know,
right?
scene.
man.
And
Yeah,
Such a good scene.
we'll get
yeah,
to Kiri no Kata because I know Kristen,
My
she's your
favorite
favorite
character.
yeah,
character.
yeah.
Love
But
her.
like Toranaga's playing, he's playing Blackthorn, he's playing Ishido, he's playing the Portuguese. Like this is
Oh
the
yeah.
scene where
Yeah.
Toranaga sits with the Portuguese, who apparently are
Uh,
always eating for some reason. I haven't really
Yeah.
like
we
I
gotten
didn't
grew up
to
in,
discuss
why
that
that
I
yet.
mean,
is.
Yeah.
here's the thing. I grew up in a
Let
very
them eat
Portuguese
cake.
area. Everyone is always eating. It's true.
So I guess
Very
it's
Legit. I grew
cultural.
up, Fall River, Massachusetts is very Portuguese. We're always eating in Fall River, Massachusetts.
And here's
Mm.
the irony to that is that any
Shout out to Fall
Japanese show
River.
you ever watch a show that is not Shogun, watch a Japanese show,
Always
they are
eating.
always eating. It is always about food. Like important scenes happen around food.
Food. Yeah.
And so
Mm.
so that's why it's sort of ironic to me that like it's always the Portuguese who are eating. The only eating scene that I can think of is like when Mariko and her son were eating and they were comparing like the color of food to the
The
color
hair.
of the Anjin's hair, but
Yeah.
like
No.
food is
Well,
not prominent in the
all the
show.
negotiations
Yeah.
with like the higher ups take place over a
Oh, do
meal.
they? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
food is
Well,
important, so maybe we'll see
but all
more.
the Portuguese. It's
Mhm.
all the Portuguese that
Well,
have yeah.
so far in episode 3, I have seen all important scenes with the
Maybe
Portuguese take
it's
place over food.
Yeah.
I
maybe
don't.
it's a nod to like Western gluttony or something that
Maybe,
like
well, because
I don't
yes,
know, or like
the Japanese
opulence,
lord that is a
Hmm.
sympathizer to the Portuguese is eating and drinking wine while he's negotiating with them.
right.
So it's probably
Um,
some sort of symbolism. I'm not going to get to that necessarily right now in what I'm talking about, which
Mm.
back to Toranaga's like sort of octopus play, right? Of every facet that he's playing with and in terms of just like it, I think this is tying into the ultimate big story of this episode, Tomorrow is Tomorrow, right? That's borrowed from Toranaga's line in the episode of like so context. Blackthorn has been instructed to dive into the ocean.
Hmm.
Mariko is translating, and he does this, and he's told explain how to swim, and Mariko translates to Toranaga. This is how he says to do it. You start from the gunnel and you put your arms in a certain way, whatever. The comedy of the scene. And by the way, I laugh a lot more in this show than I thought I would. There's a lot more like inherent comedy.
Yes. And it's
Yeah.
all happening in moments of intense mind
And
games.
yeah,
which
and it's
again
always the
goes to
unspoken.
thank you to the writers, like
Yes.
thank you to the writers because
The most
what
credit,
makes stories
yes.
interesting now is stories that you're not just watching a drama, you're not just watching a comedy, you're watching things that are just like all over the spectrum, just human life, and that's what
Right.
we want to see, and so
Well,
thank you writers, thank you to the
Yeah.
actors who are finding the humor in the scene.
and my credit goes to the silent moments of the unspoken. And I think that Hiroyuki Sanada and his ability to speak volumes in the absence of words is I think the true talent here, and also the crux of the script writing in this show, which is that we hear and see so much that is not spoken, and it is funny because we
Hmm.
see the comedy in these moments too. It's the moments where I mean, what we're talking about with Buntaro and his last moments with his samurai sword and turning around and yelling out as he goes and saves his lords. But at the same time, it's the moments of there's something earlier in the episode where it's in the very beginning where Yabushige is like, yes, I've been playing you. I have been speaking with Ishido, and Toranaga is like, let us watch the sunrise.
Hmm.
And
Together.
that comes in a moment where Yabushige actually like he's been saved.
Yeah.
Toranaga doesn't say it, but he's like, I'm not gonna kill you. And then Yabushige's like, okay, I'm good right now. So what's our plan?
Hmm.
And then Toranaga's like,
Like I'm gonna tell you, dude.
Yeah. Yeah,
For
Bushiga.
reals.
Yeah, Bushiga's face is just like, what?
Let's just watch your son, dude.
right?
All right.
And it's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
all in the
Yeah.
subtext. It's all in like what is
Oh.
not spoken, and that is the credit that I want to give to the writers.
I quickly want
They
to
do-
contrast
Yeah.
that scene with what he
Uh-huh.
says to his son.
Uh-huh.
When his
I was
son's trying to
I was
talk.
just
Oh,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
that.
Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
Tatsu.
just
that's
gonna
Go
say
ahead.
that.
yeah. Mhm.
But like that's the only time where he kind of shows his cards a little bit, right? Where
Yep.
like he's trying to educate his son,
With
who's
his
this
son. Yeah.
headstrong guy who's just like, well, we should go to war, like right now. And he's like,
Hmm.
he says, when will you understand? You're playing a game of friends and enemies when you only have yourself in this life,
Bam.
right?
Mm,
And
Bam.
mm,
he's not getting it. But like
It-
that is all the things that he's
uh,
doing, and he distilled
Hmm.
it into that. Like I'm trying to say
yep,
it as simple as possible for you.
yep,
You don't have any friends.
yep,
and that's not
You don't
yep,
have
nihilism,
any
man. I
enemies.
mean,
You just have to play.
you're in
Where?
charge.
yeah,
You're
Yeah.
you know
yeah,
you have a lot of power. And what Tornaga's showing us is he's not going to show his third heart to anyone.
yeah,
Hmm.
Anyone. And you know
Hmm.
what? He just showed it to his son. We think that that's the most honest thing he's going to say. We'll
yeah,
figure out
yeah,
what comes out of there,
Right.
but
yeah.
he's managing multiple boundaries all the time, and he's simply. What I also want to say is, a dude just plays good poker. Right now, it's a
Uh-huh.
story; it's
Oh,
written this way, but
I
I
do not want
mean,
to play poker with
he puts his
Toranaga.
actual body in that cart at the beginning, and he
Yeah.
almost gets checkmated.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what I
Thank
think's
you,
going on
Blackthorn.
between Tornag and
Right.
Blackthorn is Tornaga is learning, okay, this guy, I can't tell if he's any smarter than or any more clever than Ishibige, but this guy does things. He's in the moment. He makes things happen in the moment that have actually helped me. And no one
Yeah.
else did that because of the roles that they're in. So he's using the discordant role of this guy in ways to get what he wants. I think it's just brilliant.
What's what's interesting about their dynamic is they have an inherent trust. They've each saved each other's lives a
Yep.
couple of times for
Hmm.
no reason
Hmm.
to benefit each other. They've just kind of done it. And yeah,
Yeah.
it does benefit them maybe a little bit, but like they could just let the other person die, but they won't.
Dare I say
And
they may be
so
in touch with each other's hidden heart
yeah,
there a little bit, right?
it is it's a really interesting thing that, and I think I don't know if they know why at this point either. Maybe
Hmm.
Toranaga a little bit. He's definitely playing Blackthorn a little bit more than Blackthorn is
Mm,
playing him, even though
mm,
Blackthorn I think is starting to realize what he needs to do.
yeah.
But I think especially at the beginning of this episode where he is saying, "Oh, how dare you go into this lady's chambers?
Mm,
How dare you?
That whole thing.
How
mm,
Yes.
dare you
Uh,
try to look at her in here? In my culture, this is obscene. How
yeah.
dare you do this?"
now that was
I
clearly a
mean,
ruse. Yeah.
right. And yeah, but the
And
fact
a
that he even
great
did
scene
that,
overall.
yeah,
Yeah.
great scene.
Hmm.
But I mean, it
It
benefited
does
him,
show that
yes,
he's
but
willing to
he's
stick his neck
willing to
out. Right.
And
stick
he
his
knew
neck
what
out for
to do in
somebody
that
who,
context to save Tornaga. He knew how
yeah,
to use
who,
his cultural difference to actually change the space of the whole moment. And
yeah,
Tornaga saw that.
Mm.
He saw that this guy understands a game perhaps a little bigger than I
yeah,
thought he did. Yeah,
yeah,
I love it.
And here is something that I think that I am willing to concede of both the current series, the old television show,
Mm,
and the novel, is that it is ultimately a story. And I'm not saying that this will be the conclusion of this show or that
mm,
it is the crux of the show in
right.
general, but it is a show that places a certain amount of importance on the respect and admiration and pride, eh, or well, the respect between two men, these men of different cultures.
Hmm.
And it's, I think that like what we want to see is sort of, well, what we want to see, we are different.
Yeah.
We might be the same, we may be different. There's a romance story to be seen. There's
Hmm.
a hero story. I'm going to call it at best a hero story to be seen. There's a war story and a tactical war story to be told. I think that what we're seeing here is maybe a friendship. a friendship story that is told, a story of mutual respect, perhaps at least. In Western terms, probably, you know, a
A bromance.
buddy story, a bromance. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, he knows
But
this guy's
I
a
think that's
player
what
in
it
ways
is,
others aren't. Yeah.
right? And we have myriad examples of these in Western storytelling of this, but I think that in this context, we're looking at these two men of these very disparate cultures finding common ground.
Hmm.
And I mean, watch it in that way and see, because you're not going to get it as easily as you would think or feel
Right.
or want. But if you were to watch this show, and I'm in episode 3, watch this show as a romance
Hmm.
between Blackthorn and Toranaga, and see if that
Yep.
changes your experience.
You know, I was going to
Well,
say that 5 minutes ago, man. If you look at, I'm serious, because
Yeah.
oh yeah,
if
I
we're going to
believe
take
you.
Toranaga as the dude, right?
Uh-huh.
He's the
Yeah.
godfather. He's the one who gets
Uh-huh.
it. When you're in that role,
Mhm.
you look for people, you look for what they can contribute to what you're doing. And the Blackhorn guy saved his butt a couple times. He saved his butt a couple times. He's aware that this guy knows how to manipulate context in a way
Yep.
that will
Mhm.
move things in his direction. I mean, we'll talk about Blackthorn's third heart at another time.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think looking at it from that lens may be something that's inescapable because of the novel, right? In other words, the novel's
Mhm.
sort of written that way,
Right.
leading to the white savior vibe. So
Mhm.
that, I think, will probably end up being, for some, a persistent complaint about the story. Is there's this bromance at the heart of it, and
Right.
that gets experienced quite often as a white savior story,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
so there's no taking that out of the story as as it was written in the
There
novel.
isn't. Yeah.
You know,
You have the base story as it
It's
is.
there. Yeah.
it's in the DNA, as they say.
It is, the executive producer
Right,
is not
They're not rewriting the story.
right.
That's the story,
right.
you
Yeah.
know?
And the thing about it, for me, I mean, even Sonata didn't say, no, we're not doing that. We've
Right.
got to do something. We're going to
Mhm.
do this. And what we're going to do in this is write and act in ways that just pull all these differences and expose all these differences. And I got to say, guys, they had the conversation about the clouds in the rain.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's something else entirely.
Sure do. They sure do.
When,
They
when,
sure do.
Yeah.
when I,
It's the closest you can get to. It's the closest you can get to
when she
heaven.
was talking about pillowing and when she said, did you mean what you meant
Yeah.
about women in your country? And he goes, oh hell no. No
Oh
way.
no, they're all trollops.
She
Oh,
goes,
would you prefer male?
I know that was an
Where am
interesting
I?
comment too for male. And I was like, oh, they're so much more open.
Casual
man.
buggery.
believe me, casual. There's people
No, yeah,
all over
absolutely.
that are losing their minds watching that scene for real. There's no check of self. It's like, oh my God, they
But
do
I
that.
Also, going to something that we were talking about earlier, like
Yeah.
representation of women. Like
Yeah.
we're just like representing. Like, do
Yeah.
you want a lady to make you feel better? I think that's what you need. And so,
Mm.
This warlock.
The doc-
That's what
Pimping
warlock- yeah, I
It's
mean,
like this
Ugh.
guy's so
Those are all
tense.
great
I
questions,
think he just
man.
needs a woman. That's it.
I think it's so funny
Oh,
also that he calls
man.
him a warlock, because if he was
Yeah.
in Western culture, he'd be like this doctor.
Doctor.
But yet, like now, because he's now
Oh.
here, this is
Well,
Yeah.
and the irony being, he's talking about this man who thinks that
He's talking about
bathing
bloodletting.
too often will give him the flux.
He's like, is he gonna
that-
give me? Is he gonna put leeches on my
Oh,
body to take up?
He's
the,
gonna bleed
take up
me,
the
right?
toxins?
That's what's supposed to happen here. Is that yes?
Oh my God.
Bleed the poison out of me.
Mm.
And then the doctor's like, this guy, the best thing he
Yeah, he's
needs is a woman. He's
He's
getting laid.
relaxed. He
Pretty
needs to get
He needs to get
yeah.
F. Yeah.
He's uptight, man.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh man.
You know, we
Great.
could do a whole
Brilliant.
episode.
Uh,
Maybe we will when we're done with the show. But that whole
uh,
scene with her talking about, sexual relationships the way that she did, I just love to having a conversation about the Venn diagram of our own reactions to all that, right? Because
mhm.
one has to ask them, for example, and we don't have to have it now, but if that's something that would quote unquote truly have been said in
Mhm.
that time, is this something that she respects herself or not living this life? Is it something she
Mhm.
wants or not? You know what I'm saying? There's just all kinds of great
So
questions.
the
What I found interesting.
relationship
Oh,
that a culture has to sex is something that I think we definitely should talk about. But I think maybe post
bodies in general.
this series we'll have a
Shogun
better
Watch Party,
understanding and
the
more
sex
to talk about.
episode. Absolutely.
Is there a sex episode? I mean, we're
No,
only in
we'll do
episode
the
3.
sex episode at the end, is
Okay.
what I'm saying. We'll
All
serve it
right.
all
Okay.
Cool,
out.
cool, cool. Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
I think her response to it is that she's the translator. So she just says what he says.
Well,
And
no,
I
they
don't
were
think she
just
has a
having a
response to it.
spontaneous conversation there.
Yeah, I know,
They
but
were
like
just, I
she's like,
mean, she,
Oh
this
yeah,
is what she's
there's
saying.
a difference between her translating the scene with the doctor, and then they have a conversation
oh yeah,
later,
right.
right
Right,
before
right.
the fire arrows about
Which
Yeah.
she
right.
feels more comfortable at this point. But like I think
Uh,
like she would never have had that conversation had
sure.
it not already come up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that
Now,
she was
so
like, I'm a professional, even though like I'm a professional, I'm gonna say what he just said. This is what
Hmm.
he thinks that you need. And then he asks her later, and she's like, "Well, we've already brought this
and
up,
then
so
Mariko,
okay, yeah."
now let's talk about the westernization of Mariko, because
Hmm.
I think that's sort of
Oh,
the direction
you
we're
want to talk about her
going.
fighting?
I
Yeah.
do, and I have to.
Tatsu,
I have
did
to.
you have a
Okay,
visceral response to this, like Rio did? Did you have a
Kristen,
huge
B,
response to it?
So
Kristen.
not
They're
the
fighting?
first time.
What? No, I'm asking
Yes.
your brother if he had a big
Yeah.
response to her fighting like you did.
Is
Did that
it
impact you?
likely? Is it likely to have happened at the time? No,
No.
it's not.
Did you get as upset as Rio
There's
did?
no. I mean, like it
He's
doesn't
covering
make
his
sense.
face.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, okay.
But that goes back to what we're talking about. That like it is a story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is part of the story that was put into it, right?
Hmm.
Right.
That if Sanada had his way, right, he'd probably be like, I don't know if that matches up necessarily, but in the sense that okay, we're writing a woman who has a traumatic what I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
without
see,
any
that's what I
context,
thought. If
without any
I don't know,
context,
I haven't gone in, so I said to Rio, like maybe her dad taught her something, and he said, no, no, no,
right,
a samurai dad would never teach his daughter. And I said, okay, all right,
right,
I don't know. So,
right.
but also I think back to, I have a very limited, and yes, it's fiction, but I have a very limited scope for Game of Thrones. But I know that we've compared this a couple of times,
Hmm.
and I know that is it Arya that gets trained?
Arya Stark, Brienne of
Yeah,
Tarth.
that gets
Yeah.
trained. She gets trained with the swords.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she wouldn't normally be someone that is trained with swords.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe it was a moment in time where it was necessary for her to learn this. I don't know. We are not there yet. Yes, you're putting your finger up.
I'm I don't want to interrupt anyone.
No, you're not.
Hmm.
And we have last time we discussed the difference between Game of Thrones and Shogun in that this should be historically based. Game of
Hmm.
Thrones is based on the novels by George
Again,
R. R.
I have
Martin.
not watched Game of Thrones in its entirety.
Now, I want to make very clear that I have no problem and I would fully accept if Mariko was trained and is proficient in the use of this pole arm spear that she's using in that fight. in the context of the show so far in episode 3, I have no reason to believe that this woman has this ability to use the sword or to use that weapon to that extent. It just seemed like a plot device to save the main characters
Mm.
in in such a way that was both convenient and badass. Now,
Hmm.
do I want to see Mariko wield a spear and save everyone? Yes. Do I need justification for that plot wise? Also, yes.
Yeah.
I need a
Okay,
reason for that to happen. And the reason I say this also is because it's justifying the plot such that Blackthorn is not really a martial artist of any kind. Any scene that we've seen where he has to fight,
He doesn't.
he's not great. Like he has his moments which are
He uses it.
justifiable.
It's just
He
instinct.
happens to like, yeah, like stick it
It's just instinct.
at the right point or in
To
that
save
in that
himself.
scene
Yeah.
where they're looking at the palanquins and
Mhm.
and inspecting. He uses his brain, he uses his ability to perform at that point to use
Yeah.
that scene to distract for long
Sure.
enough to. My problem is that we have no idea why Mariko can use the spear like that, and we have not yet received a justification as to why. The a scene like even a shot and a half of her doing what she did, I still don't see why she's able to do that. I
So
want to know why.
I think it's instructional to look at the difference between your reactions and mine.
Yeah, sure.
Because when I was watching it, I had the same response you do, but my response is I don't know if this is historically accurate, so I'm going to assume that they're being honest with me.
Sure.
But damn, ain't that thing a little big to be using out in the forest in the middle of the night? And I'm sorry, this was not Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon fights. Man, I'm just saying, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, best choreography ever. But there were
And
things.
Michelle Yeoh's character was a trained martial artist.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
narratively so.
No, absolutely. And it showed,
Mariko, we know to be the lowborn wife of a samurai who happened to become Christian and learn Portuguese.
No, I agree.
Right.
All
Yeah.
I'm saying is
Yeah.
the sword fighting was not, the choreography was not top-notch
Choreography.
martial
Yeah.
arts choreography.
So yeah.
I'm just
so, like,
saying,
okay.
the
that's not-
movements were
Yeah.
very slow for her to be that effective in that close quarters context. That's
Okay.
all I'm saying. And so that
Yeah.
was a third reaction.
Well,
But
is
when
it
came
because
to
she's
is it
also
authentic or not, I just backed off and said I'm going to assume that they know what they're saying.
well, she's not doing anything special. So maybe is it just she's fighting on instinct and she's fighting against townspeople who don't really have much training either.
I mean,
And so
is
she
this
just
a
goes
moment where
in.
we just have to give it away to Hollywood Magic?
Yeah, it might be one of those moments where it's just like
Right.
we're just gonna let it go, like that,
Because
Or maybe
like she just was like, I just gonna
later.
fight.
maybe there's more. Maybe there's
Maybe.
more. I need there to be more
Devin, they
because
better explain it.
otherwise,
Yeah,
because they've
yeah.
justified others. Like
No.
I said, Blackthorn does not have martial fighting training clearly, which makes the plot point
Well, which would make
Toranaga
sense.
telling him to train them in martial fighting at least more interesting. Because he clearly is like, I'm not a fighter, but wait, I do want to live. I'm a fighter and I'll do what you say. As opposed to Mariko, we have no context whatsoever. I would believe more that John Blackthorn can fight than Mariko can. Just from
Don't
the
be-
context we've been
Don't
given
be
so far.
sexist.
And again, I don't want to make it sexist. We have just seen a kunoichi, a female
Yeah.
assassin,
Which is
nearly
believable.
annihilate two main characters.
And that
It is
choreography
not
was
about-
amazing from
Yeah,
top
That's
to bottom.
it is.
believable.
That's
It is
excellent
not
choreography.
about sex in this show,
No.
and I don't want
No.
to frame this as being sexist on the part of the show. Maybe
Well,
blame
again, I
me,
mean,
don't blame the show. And in this
we'll see.
specific
We'll
point.
see what happens.
Yep.
But I think
Mm,
that it was like, Ted Farrell teaching Kristen how to like throw a punch. Like
your
maybe
father
yes,
teaching you.
maybe
Yes.
that's
Yes.
what happened here is that she was taught how to protect herself if she needed to
I
Maybe.
be
did
protected.
not teach my
Maybe.
girls kung fu literally, but I
Oh,
taught them kung fu cognitively.
my
That's
yeah,
for sure, man. Know how to throw a punch with your mind. Absolutely.
Ted Farrell taught me how to stand and how to throw a punch because
Yeah.
I am small, and he said if you ever need it, this is how you do it.
This is
Don't
how
do
you
it,
do
don't
it.
start it, but this is how you
And
do it.
I need to make
So
so
maybe
clear that it's not that I don't expect a girl to throw a punch. It's
I
that
know that.
No,
I
we do.
know that,
the
and I
amount
understand.
of martial artistry that I saw in the episode was not expected or justified so far
Well,
in the plot.
maybe it wasn't accurate historically, but maybe that's the plot line is that she was
And
just
and
given.
and I
I
see
think they
this
took out a
plenty.
narrative debt. They took
Yeah,
out a
okay.
narrative debt,
I mean,
and they got to
maybe
pay
that's
us
what it
later.
is.
And if they don't pay us later, then we're
Yeah,
going to call
I
it a
hope it
plot
pays
hole.
off.
You know,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Mm, I
We'll
don't
see.
think you
We'll
should hold
see.
your breath.
In a Western story, I would be like, okay, yeah, we're just gonna be like, all right, she has just enough martial prowess to get out of this situation. Cool.
Mm,
All right, cool. She's not a warrior princess. She just can,
She's
like
not
in this
Mulan.
situation, get out of it. But we'll see. We'll see.
yeah,
And like I said, this is why I'm watching it episode to episode. I want
right.
to experience it in context.
So debt
Well,
one. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for all we know, James Clavell did
Uh,
his research and found this like very, very obscure like historical instance where there was a group of trained like spear
uh,
wielding
yeah.
I
you
hope
know
that's true.
Why haven't we
women
seen that
regents
in the
wives.
plot yet?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
right, yeah.
yeah,
No, I
yeah,
get
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right,
I
right.
I want that.
Well, we'll see.
I want so badly for that to be the case. I just need it to be contextualized to be shown.
Otherwise, it's just thrown in there for
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
like
Let's
why
go
is
ahead and
this
move on to Tatsu's favorite line character scene.
Yay.
Yeah.
I already said my favorite line. Let's see. We've already talked about um most of the ones. Yeah, like going back to how we love how there's just kind of like comedy like sporadically throughout. You love when Yabushige is writing his will. He's like, "This is the best one yet." Like, he's such a
Yeah.
great character to have.
Does he tear
Um,
that up at some point in the
Yeah.
episode? Did I
Does
miss
he?
that? Or
Yeah.
something like
When
does that
they're
come up again?
no, he tears up his will
Yeah.
later
When does
And
that
in the
then
happen?
episode. Just before I think they leave to go to the coast. I think he says like you're never gonna okay, then it's goodbye. Someone's not coming with us, and he says, "Oh yeah, here's your will." Aw. And they go off. So I think it was before they started taking
Okay.
off for the coast, but I can't be.
Was it like after he found
yeah,
out that
yeah,
Toranaga was on their uh journey?
right.
Is that what it was? He's like,
No, that gets
because I know there's a moment where Yabashige is like, to Toranaga, it would be wonderful if you told me
if
your
you
One of
told
these
me your
times.
plan.
prior
Yeah, one of these
to
times.
before they happen,
Yeah.
and he's like, I'll consider it.
I'll keep that in mind.
Man, that's great stuff.
That might have been
Top comedic line. You mentioned comedy. Kiri no
Kiri no
Kata.
Kata. Yeah.
She's in the crate, and the guy's opening up, inspecting it, and she goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm so sad to be leaving." And he goes, "Yes, I'm so sad you're leaving." And she goes, "There's just too many bandits in this town. I just
And
love."
which is yeah.
The punch in the
like this.
face with every single statement, right? Absolutely.
That might have even been the second instance of that line being used in the episode.
Yeah, it
Like
is. Yeah, yeah.
people are talking about assassins and bandits throughout, and like me, I here the difference between Shogun and Game of Thrones is that I've watched Shogun, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
There you
But like there's so much of the plot being thrown into each other's faces of
Yes.
like and so much that the subtext is so on point, I
On
think.
point.
It's all about what's not being said, and that's
Hmm.
why an actor like Hiroyuki Sanada is so brilliant for this role of Toranaga is
Hmm.
he can say all he needs to say
Yeah.
without words. It's just a
And then
mhm.
when he's sitting down with the Portuguese negotiating, and the captain of the black ship says, "No, that's not going to be enough money." And the
Mm.
translator tells Toranaga, he said, "It's not going to be enough money." He just kind of goes, "Ugh," like he's disgusted. Now, on the one hand, you might think, "Oh, bad poker, you're showing how you feel."
Uh,
No, he wants them to know exactly how he feels about them. I mean, he's been doing this
uh-huh.
so long. It really is cognitive kung fu. You know, the purpose of
Mhm.
martial arts is to be able to move your body without thinking about it in ways you've practiced. And that's just how he's in this space. It just comes out of him. They're worthy of disgust. It works for me politically that they know
Mhm.
I find them unworthy. And even when you think he's kind of you've got into who he is, it's all there. It's
And,
fantastic.
Hmm.
we have to accept or we have to acknowledge the fact that this is him going two steps in communication.
Hmm.
He's watching them saying what they're saying
Yeah,
and not hearing what they're saying, but he's observing how they're
yeah,
saying it mannerisms.
exactly.
This is something that I experienced
Yeah,
in translation is like
yeah.
you're gonna see and hear one thing, and you might in your language hear another thing.
No, it's something I
And
experience
and
in
you're
department
like,
meetings.
yes, the words that I'm hearing are not what I just
Oh, there's
saw,
so much more going on.
right?
Always, yes.
And I mean, this is going to, I imagine, be throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
That double layer. It's brilliant though to act that. I
No.
don't know if we can all sort of put ourselves in the mindset for a second of
Mm-mm.
like watching and seeing and hearing someone that you do not understand,
Mm-hmm.
not just verbally, but culturally,
Mm-hmm.
but and visibly you see one thing and then you hear another thing. What is that experience like? And then put yourself in a war situation of where
Mm-hmm.
your decisions make the difference between the lives of thousands, if not millions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That
That's the
those are the
poker.
stakes that we're playing with at this, which is brilliant, but also like just
Scary as hell,
I
man.
Terrifying.
want you to be able to like experience it in that way of
Yeah.
like how different this is and
Yeah, and the point of
dangerous this
characters
is.
like, Yubushige is to contrast with Toranaga, right?
Uh-huh.
He can't be in that space like that. He just can't. It's not who he
Hmm.
is. And
Right.
all these different characters kind of shape who we understand them to be by being different from each other, right?
To that
Yeah.
point, his stupid fucking helmet with the hair.
With the hair?
I
What
I
the
I I
hell?
have to point that out. That might have been my favorite part of the
I said it looked like what
Again,
it said it looked
It's
like what
like,
I used to do to my Barbie's hair. Yeah.
yeah.
I had
It's
another
like
one.
brilliant.
it's like the Gucci or like the Ed Hardy of the time, you know? It's just like
Yeah.
My reaction
It's
was,
so
I'm not
hideous.
supposed to laugh at that. That was
but
my reaction.
but
Was I'm not
I give
supposed
you
to
Well,
laugh.
full
don't
permission
worry,
to laugh.
don't worry. Rio totally laughed at it. So
No, I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe everybody's running around with hair on their helmet.
no, I think
Yeah.
that was intentional to make you
Yeah.
go, "What the heck is this guy doing?"
And to
Like
borrow
wearing a
Kristen's
scalp.
expression, Ishido's helmet has little Shrek ears on it. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
these guys, like they're
Yeah.
supposed to be ostentatious and ridiculous.
Opulent. I
Opulence,
own
yes.
everything.
It's
Yeah.
and so yes, he is ridiculous and he's supposed to be. That is fact.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think on that, well, go ahead.
Yeah.
And I think we might be close to bringing it to an end. So go ahead.
What I was gonna say is that the last thing that I want to bring it home with is the boat race near the end. That one had a lot of like non-Japanese politics happening, I think. Like and maybe this is lending a little more to Western narrative of like these two equals sort of like rivaling and respecting. At the same time, maybe it's sort of like East meets West in terms of narrative of like these two, this British pilot navigator and the Portuguese one being like, well, I respect what you're doing. I see what you're doing. We're battling with these ships. Like you
Yeah.
could go against these rocks, but you know what? I owe you one. And I'm gonna honor that and I'm gonna see you through this. Rodriguez lets Blackthorn through on that side, and he's like, yep, I owe you one. He said it.
Yeah.
Also, the best insults of the entire episode happen during that
Yes.
exchange.
Fantastic.
Like I said, salty whale's tit right there.
Yeah.
Your mother, my mother's dead. Oh,
Toranaga.
Oh. Oh.
Toranaga left Blackthorn behind.
He
Let's just
did.
make that clear.
He did.
He had
let's
no
Yeah.
clue if he was
Yeah.
going to survive. So,
Yeah.
he's just playing poker as best he can in the moment. He's probably the best player in the room. But, of course, for story purposes, we need Blackthorn to live.
And then they had a little swimsuit episode. Yeah,
Exactly.
That's how that
With
went.
the wait, what's it called? What's it called?
What?
What's his little loincloth
Hundoshi,
called?
hundoshi, loincloth.
Oh,
We call that a hundoshi.
fundoshi.
Hundoshi
Yeah.
is the loincloth. You learned something today.
Yeah.
Hundoshi is the Japanese loincloth. Yes.
Yes. We also
been-
learned there's specific websites that have a lot of them.
There you
Amazon.
go.
Amazon
Just
has a lot of.
happened to
Amazon has a lot of them.
fall on that page.
If
When we were
Hundoshi,
looking for something else, we found a lot of those.
if
Yeah,
Hundoshi
that's a good
websites want to
story.
sponsor us, that'd be great. I'm
Yeah,
happy to
you can
advertise.
sponsor-
I will
it's
model
dark.
Hundoshi.
It's Dark Loop
There you go.
Production.
There you go.
We'll welcome that sponsorship. We are not sponsored
Yeah.
right now, but we will welcome
Yeah.
that sponsorship. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll negotiate.
I'll
that
wear
in
one
the
too.
back room somewhere. All righty then. So on that note, I think we're going to bring tonight's discussion to a conclusion. Tatsu, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media? And I know you always say LinkedIn, but nonetheless, I like to ask anyway.
Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn, T-Shigeta.
Fantastic. How about you, Kristen?
Fun-sized Farrell on Instagram and Kristen Farrell Realtor on Instagram as well as I have so many. Eat Your Way Around the World with me and Shigeta Around the World.
There you go. And how about you, Rio?
I'm associated with those last couple, but make no mistake, Kristen posts all of it. You can find me at I Know Rio on most social media. Bother me on those social media facets because I don't post anything. That's
I have never been posted.
Uh-oh.
Kristen has never been posted on them, so bother me about that. I don't know.
All right, then. That'll be Rio's
The
next
end.
threads question. Why haven't I posted, Kristen?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, ask
I mean,
ask the question.
There you
we
go.
are
I
getting
will
married.
answer. I will answer.
And on that note, you can find all episodes of the Shogun Watch Party on Dark Loops Productions on YouTube. You can also go to the Dark Loops Productions page on Facebook, and it'll be posted there. If you'd like to comment on anything we've said, just go ahead and post it in this on this page, or send an email to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we'll be more than happy to read it and discuss it during our next episode. So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs, and remember,
Fundoshi Kantai. I said Fundoshi instead of Shogun,
all right,
and that's
I'll
how
let you
we're
do
gonna
that
end it.
again, man.
And I just said, hi.
I'm just waiting. Where my
I'm
bow,
okay
man?
with
For
that.
the
Yeah.
for the
No,
Fundoshi
no.
watch party now. Okay.
No.
All
Let's try
right.
that again. So there it
Okay.
is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs, and remember,
Shogun Kantai. Fundoshi hakimasu.
Hi.
Night night.
bye-bye.
Bye bye. おやすみなさい。
おやすみなさい。